It was just another day at the hotel chain, or at least I thought it would be. The hotel was buzzing as usual, with guests checking in and out, staff moving efficiently, and everything running smoothly. My sister, having just been promoted to president of the company, was busy managing the direction of the business. I had worked alongside her for years, and given our close relationship, I figured she'd want to discuss strategy, future plans, or perhaps get my input on some new initiatives. I was ready for any conversation that would allow us to continue growing the business together. But when I stepped into her office, the atmosphere shifted. It felt heavier, colder. She looked up from her desk, her expression unreadable, and something about the way she avoided my eyes made my stomach twist. Then she spoke. "I'm letting you go," she said, her voice steady and emotionless. The words hit me like a freight train. I couldn't move. The world around me seemed to stop, as if everything had been paused. I was stunned. I blinked, trying to process the weight of what she had just said. I had worked so hard for this company, for her, and to hear those words come from my sister, the person I had trusted above all else, was more than I could comprehend. Her tone was calm, almost businesslike. But to me, it felt like a betrayal. Like everything we had worked for together was suddenly meaningless. The shock of it overwhelmed me, and for a long moment, I couldn't say anything. How could this be happening? How could she be doing this? To me, the room felt smaller, the air thicker. And in that moment, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Our family's hotel chain wasn't just a business to us, it was everything. It was our legacy, our foundation, and our dream. My sister and I grew up with the company. It was woven into the fabric of our childhood. Our parents built it from the ground up, and from a young age, they taught us the ins and outs of running a business, the value of hard work, and the importance of family. I remember the long nights spent in the office with our parents, learning about budgets and customer service, and even the smallest details that would later shape the success of the business. We didn't just work in the business, we lived it, breathed it, and believed in it with all our hearts. My sister and I had always been partners in this journey. We worked side by side through the years, building the company together, facing challenges, and celebrating victories. We had always shared a vision for the future, a vision that we would grow the company into something bigger, something our parents would be proud of. Even though there was the occasional sibling rivalry who didn't have that, there was always an underlying bond, a deep sense of trust and respect that anchored us. We were more than just family, we were co-creators of this legacy. Bound by shared dreams and the belief that we could take our parents' hard work and make it even better, our bond wasn't just about blood. It was about business, about something we both held dear. Every decision we made, every plan we put into motion, felt like we were in it together. But when she became president, something changed. I had known the transition was coming, and I had even supported it, knowing that my sister had earned it. She had worked hard, proven herself, and the promotion seemed like the natural next step. But once she stepped into that role, the dynamics between us began to shift. Suddenly her focus seemed to narrow. The decisions she made became more about growth and expansion, and less about the values and vision we had built together. I began to feel like I was being left behind, like I was no longer part of that shared dream. It's the sister I had always worked with. The one who had been my partner in everything felt more like a stranger than ever before. It was hard to admit. The business wasn't the same, and neither were we. In the months leading up to her promotion, I started to notice a change in her. It wasn't anything overt at first, just small shifts in her behavior. She became more focused, more driven. At first, I thought it was just a sign of her stepping into the new role, taking on the responsibility with the seriousness it deserved. But then, the changes became harder to ignore. She was working longer hours, staying in the office late into the night, and when I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed me off. It was as though the business had consumed her, and I started to feel like an outsider in a world I had once been at the center of. She was making decisions without consulting me, big decisions too. Decisions about the direction of the hotel, chain, plans for expansion, even staffing choices. I used to be the first person she came to for input, the first person she trusted to bounce ideas off of. But now, she seemed to be making those calls on her own. First, I tried to chalk it up to the stress of the new role. It was a big shift for her, and maybe she just needed to assert herself more. Didn't want to make it about me, but as time went on, it became clear that it wasn't just the stress of the role. It wasn't just about business. She was building a new vision for the company, vision that didn't seem to include me. Slowly but surely, I began to feel pushed out, as though I was becoming irrelevant to the future of the business we had. Both worked so hard to create. There was a coldness creeping into our relationship that I couldn't ignore. The casual conversations we used to have about plans and ideas now felt distant and transactional. I couldn't help but wonder, was she moving forward without me? Was our bond really that fragile? It was hard to admit, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the business. It was about her new vision, one that had left me behind, no longer part of the team I had built with her. I walked into her office, expecting a conversation about the future, about our plans, about continuing to build the company together. I'd always trusted her, and I thought that with her new role, we would still work side by side, just like we had before. But when I stepped into the room, the coldness in the air hit me immediately. She didn't greet me with the usual warmth, or even the slight hint of excitement that we had shared in the past. Instead, she looked at me with a gaze that was distant, almost calculating, and that's when I knew something was wrong. "I'm letting you go," she said, her voice steady, but so devoid of emotion that it felt like it belonged to a stranger. Not the sister I had trusted and built a life with. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. My heart stopped, and for a moment I thought I must have heard her wrong. But no, the coldness in her eyes and the finality in her tone left no room for misunderstanding. "I'm letting you go." It was as if the world flipped upside down in that moment. The sister I had worked beside for years, the one I had supported, the one I had believed would always have my back, had just turned her back on me. Just like that, one sentence. The bond we had built over the years, the shared dreams and visions seemed to disappear. I stood there, frozen, struggling to process what had just happened. This wasn't just a job I was losing, it was everything. My role in the company, my sense of identity, and my relationship with the one person I thought I could always count on. The trust I had in her, in us, felt like it had been ripped away. In that moment, I realized that no matter how many years we had spent together, no matter how much we had built, none of it seemed to matter to her anymore. She wasn't just firing me from a role. She was severing our connection. My world felt like it was falling apart, and all I could do was stand there, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I walked out of that office in a daze, each step heavier than the last. The ground beneath me felt unstable, as if it was slipping away with every movement. The world outside seemed distant, like I was looking at it through a fogged window. I had spent so much of my life here building this company, pouring my heart into every decision, every challenge we faced together, and now, just like that, it wasn't mine anymore. The company that had been a part of my identity, that had shaped me for as long as I could remember, was no longer mine. It felt like the very foundation I had built my life on had been yanked from under me. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, messages from colleagues, from people who had worked beside me, asking if I was okay, offering support. But I couldn't bring myself to answer any of them. What could I say? How could I explain the unexplainable? I wasn't sure what to say. The weight of the truth that I was no longer part of her world, no longer a part of the company that had been my life, pressed down on me like a physical burden. I felt numb, as if everything around me had lost its meaning. The people who had been my colleagues, who had shared in the victories and defeats, were now strangers to me, and the thought of being away from the place I had worked for so long left a pit in my stomach. I walked down the hall, my steps mechanical, disconnected from the world around me. Each hallway I passed felt foreign, each familiar face a reminder of what I had lost. I wasn't just losing my job, I was losing my place in a world I had believed was unshakable. The numbness set in quickly, like a thick fog settling over everything. I knew. It was as if I was walking through a dream, unable to reach out and grab hold of anything real. I didn't know how to move forward, how to process what had just happened. I had never felt so empty, so lost in my entire life. I stepped outside into the fresh air, but it felt like I was breathing through a mask. The world was still spinning, but I wasn't sure I belonged in it anymore. I sat in my car, parked in front of the hotel, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The familiar sight of the building, the place I had dedicated my entire life to, now felt like a distant memory. The tears came in waves, unexpected, uncontrollable. They weren't just tears of frustration or sadness. They were the culmination of everything I had lost. I had given my everything to this family, to this business. Every ounce of energy, every sacrifice, every moment I could have spent elsewhere, I had poured into this company. Believed in the dream we had built together. Believed in my sister, in the bond we shared, in the future we were supposed to create as a family. But in the blink of an eye, all of it was gone. In return for all I had given, I was left with nothing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch the steering wheel, to hit something, to release the frustration that had built up inside me for so long. But instead, I cried. It was a cry of grief, of disbelief. I cried for the loss of my job, for the betrayal of my sister, and for the family I thought I knew. I cried for the dreams we had once shared, now shattered beyond repair. What hurt the most was the way she had discarded me without a second thought. The sister who I had trusted implicitly, the person I had worked alongside for so many years, had just cut me out of her life as if I was nothing. No explanation, no empathy, just a cold, calculated decision that left me feeling small and insignificant. I could feel the tears stinging my eyes, but I couldn't stop them. I had never felt more alone in my life. The world outside my car felt distant, like it was moving on without me, while I sat frozen in place. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know who I was without the business. Without the sister I had loved and trusted, all I could do was cry. The next morning, I woke up in an empty house, the silence almost deafening. The familiar hum of life, the noise of the world outside, felt like it belonged to someone else. I lay there for a long time, staring at the walls, trying to make sense of the emptiness that had settled over me. Of it, I had no idea what to do next, no plan for the future. I felt like a stranger in my own life. The reality of everything hit me hard. This wasn't just about losing my job, it was about the loss of the future I had imagined. The life I had built around the business, the people I thought I could trust. My sister had taken the company, yes, but more than that, she had taken the last bit of trust I had in her. The person I had worked beside for so many years, the person I had believed would always have my back, had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. I thought the bond between us was unbreakable. I thought we shared something that couldn't be severed by business decisions. But now, I was left with the harsh reality. I was no longer part of that world. The world that had once been my life, the world I had dedicated so much of myself to, was now a foreign place. I tried to go through the motions, to act like everything was fine, but the truth was that nothing would ever be the same again. Silence in my house mirrored the silence in my heart. I was adrift, unsure of who I was anymore, unsure of where I belonged. The life I had known was gone, and I had no idea how to rebuild from here. I was isolated, not just from my sister, but from everything I had once known. And in that moment, I realized that the journey ahead would be harder than anything I had ever faced. I couldn't just walk away without confronting her. I needed answers. I couldn't let the betrayal fester inside me without understanding why. She had done this, why everything we had worked for was discarded so easily. I needed to know why she couldn't see me as anything more than an obstacle in her new vision for the company we had built together. So, I made the decision to face her, to demand some kind of explanation, some justification for what had just shattered our relationship. I walked into her office with all the anger and confusion I had been carrying for days, expecting to find some small shred of understanding, hoping for some glimpse of the sister I had known before all this. But when I sat across from her, the coldness in her demeanor hit me like a slap in the face. She looked at me, no warmth, no hint of regret, just a distant, emotionless stare. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of frustration and hurt. "Why did you do this? After everything we've been through, everything we've built, how could you just throw it all away?" She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Response was chillingly cold. "It was a business decision," she said, almost too calmly. "Nothing personal." The words cut through me like a knife. Nothing personal. How could she say that so easily? How could she dismiss everything we had shared? The trust, the love, the years of working side by side just like that. There was no apology. No understanding of the pain she had caused. It was as if I had never mattered to her beyond what I could contribute to the company. She had stripped everything away, and in that moment, I realized that I was nothing more to her than a liability. The frustration inside me boiled over, but I couldn't say anything. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't the sister I knew anymore. She was someone else, someone I no longer recognized. And that realization was more painful than the loss of my job. I left her office with nothing, no answers. No closure, just the cold weight of her indifference pressing down on me. It wasn't easy. The road ahead felt long, and at times I doubted whether I'd ever fully heal. But I knew I couldn't let this define me. I couldn't let the betrayal, the loss, and the pain keep me stuck forever. So I started taking small steps toward rebuilding my life, no matter how overwhelming it seemed at first. I reconnected with friends and people I had lost touch with over the years. In the whirlwind of the business and the constant pressure of the company, I had let those connections slip away.
Ow.
But now, I reached out. I sent messages, made calls, and set up meets. At first, it felt like I was trying to piece together a life that had fallen apart. Each conversation, each reconnection reminded me that I wasn't alone in this world. People still cared about me. I still had a place in their lives. I also focused on the projects and passions I had once cared about, the ones I had put aside in favor of the business. I dusted off the things that used to light me up: creative endeavors, hobbies, and ideas I had abandoned for years. Whether it was painting, writing, or picking up a business plan that had been on the back burner, I began to rediscover what made me feel alive. It wasn't about making a fortune or building something big. It was about finding joy and fulfillment again, no matter how small the steps were. As the days went by, I slowly began to learn how to stand on my own. It was hard, and some days felt like I was walking in circles, unsure of the path ahead. Each step forward, no matter how tinier, reminded me of the strength I had inside. The strength I had forgotten about while wrapped up in the business. I wasn't weak for feeling lost. I was strong for allowing myself to rebuild. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks, moments when I wanted to give up. But with each day that passed, I felt myself becoming more of the person I had been before. Everything had changed. I was discovering my own strength again, one step at a time. Looking back, I realized that being fired wasn't the end of my story. It was a turning point. One of the best things that could have happened to me. At first, I couldn't see it that way. I was angry, hurt, and lost, unsure of who I was without the company, without my sister, without the future I thought was mine. But now, with the benefit of time, I see that it set me free. My sister may have taken the company, but she didn't take my integrity, my values, or my sense of self. She didn't take the core of who I am. I'm not defined by the role I played or the title I once held. I'm not defined by the business or the success. I am more than that. I am more than the job I lost. I am more than the family dynamics that shifted in an instant. Through this experience, I've learned that my worth doesn't come from external achievements or the approval of others. It comes from within. I've learned to trust myself again, to believe in my own capabilities, and to understand that I can rebuild, reshape, and redefine my future on my own terms. I'm stronger than ever. The person who walked out of that office feeling like everything had fallen apart is not the person I am now. I've grown, I've learned, and I've emerged from the pain with a renewed sense of purpose. I've learned how to trust myself again and how to build something of my own, something that reflects my values and my vision. It's not just someone else's. I know now that I don't need anyone's approval to feel whole. The future is mine too. Shape, and I will shape it with confidence, strength, and resilience. I am no longer defined by what I lost. I am defined by how I rise from it. And that's exactly what I intend to do.